Assalamu alaikum. Welcome everyone to our podcast. Bismillah, I'm late again. Stories of a working Muslim mom. And today is a very special day because we're going to be doing a spotlight on the amazing, sweet, caring mama bear, Lena. So before we start, Lena Jan, I just wanted to kind of get everyone up to speed with our timelines. So by this time we have already launched our first episode, and I just kind of want to know how you feel about that so far and what the feelings have been. Have you had any feedback? Has anyone reached out to you? Just kind of want to know how that's going on for you.
Yeah, well, the feedback was overwhelmingly positive. I really appreciate people reaching out, people that I haven't connected for a very long time, reaching out and just saying that, encouraging us to continue saying kind things. It's very reassuring and want me to just keep on going forward. So I really appreciate those of you who have reached out. It truly means the world because definitely looking back at that episode, there's a lot of self-doubt, there's a lot of self-consciousness, right? About the voice, about how we look, about the video. All of those thoughts are rushing through, and time to time I'm checking out inside of myself. I'm like, okay, we should just stop all of this and just delete everything. And then I feel like no, but I really enjoyed and I had fun doing it with Nora. So I just want to continue. And I just push through that feelings of self-doubt. And I'm just so happy that we keep on going, even though there's just so many ruminating thoughts that are arising within myself. How about you?
Same. I think sometimes I'm like, let's just delete everything and pretend it never happened. But it happened and we launched.
Mm-hmm.
And my husband has been praising us, and he hasn't listened to the full episode yet. I will make him listen to it. But what he's seen so far, he likes. And then I've had some messages come towards me that have been amazing, like a couple of friends that we know, and they just said that this is something that's much needed, and I think we should strike while the iron's hot and just continue for now.
Yeah, I
And see
agree.
Yeah. Okay, alhamdulillah.
And it's also such a beautiful way to kind of capture those memories of us chatting. Very often when we talk with you on the phone, even before we even thought about podcast, I felt like, oh man, I wish I recorded it somehow. And I literally have screenshots of some of our conversations that helped me to process certain things. And I made screenshots of those to kind of return to that because I wanted to save it in a certain way. So I'm glad that now we are kind of officially doing that. So I don't have to scramble around and keep coming back to our conversations, that now we have an actual recordings and podcasts that we can go back to.
Yeah, and actually my mom mentioned that she loves our chemistry. She can feel the friendship.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, of course, that's my mom. Of course, she's going to be very supportive, but I believe what she says because I know it's true. I listened back myself to that first episode, and the way we were just talking, it really is how we just talk. And I can feel the warmth, and I can feel our friendship.
Right.
And I think, and I'm hoping that, that kind of authentic, what we're trying to do is just to talk about how it is being working Muslim moms is just gonna it'll just attract all the other moms that need that friend. I think my hope is that if you don't have a friend like my friend Yelena, I hope that when the listeners listen, they can just feel the friendship, and then they could just feel that we're their friends too.
All right. Yeah.
That's kind of my hope in this.
Creating that safe space.
The safe space. I think friendship is absolutely important. You have to have friends. You have to have mom friends. And it's even more special to have mom friends with kids that are similar ages, which is very hard to find. I think not everyone has that. I think I'm lucky, and I think you're lucky, but I think because you had Komil, a few years before the rest of us had babies. So, and we talked about that last time. It was a little bit different. You being the first mom, the only mom.
Mm-hmm.
And I think by the time you and I were pregnant, it was actually a lot more of our friends were pregnant at the same time. So Ella was
Yeah.
pregnant. We had some other friends that were pregnant. So for me personally, like my daughter was born with made friends.
Yeah.
And I think it's for us moms to like have the similar age kids that we know what we're going through. Like you don't even have to tell me, but I know how you feel when your 4-year old is, doing
Good.
something crazy. I just know
Yeah.
because my
Yeah.
4-year old's doing the same thing.
Exactly.
Oh, okay. Bismillah. I'm nervous, but because this is my first time like actually like hosting and like doing the questions, I'm a little bit nervous. So I think I just want to give everyone else a little bit of a heads up. So our first episode was a story about how we became friends, and I think what we wanted to do was for the listeners to understand us and to know us a little bit more. We wanted to do one-on-one, like we wanted to interview each other. So that our listeners can, get a better understanding of who we are as individuals. And then
Yeah.
afterwards, we're going to have like actual segmented podcasts, like what we're going to be like actual discussions that we're going to be talking about.
Yeah.
So without further ado, I want everyone to get to know my Lena. She's not your Lena, she's mine. Just kidding. She's all of ours. So Lena Jen, I think last time we spoke, our last episode, you and I, we've known each other for 12 years. But how long have you actually lived here in the States?
I came in the States in 2008, so it's been
Wow.
17.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's crazy. Okay, and so you are originally from Kazakhstan.
Okay.
And I need to let everyone know that before meeting you, I didn't know that country existed because, for my limited world knowledge, I didn't know that country existed. And not only do I know one Kazakh lady, I know two Kazakh ladies. Shout out to Zamira. I feel lucky. You guys are amazing.
You also know Marshan.
Who?
Marshan.
Oh, she's Kazakh. That's
Yeah,
right.
that's also
Wow, I
Kazakh.
think I need to collect you guys.
It's three of us. So those are the ones that I know in US too.
So, Lena, can you tell me a little bit about life in Kazakhstan and
Yeah.
and also what you're wearing? Because I think it's perfect. This was not planned. I need you to tell us about your dress. So go.
Well, first of all, I think like I'll address the dress because it wasn't planned and yet it was like a last minute intentional choice to wear this. This dress is representation of my culture. I grew up in Kazakhstan. In Kazakhstan, there is over 157 different nations that live together in Kazakhstan. It's like a big melting pot because there is a part of Kazakhstan that's Siberia. A lot of people were exiled into Kazakhstan throughout different like political movements in that area of the world. So we end up having so many different nations that were living together. So my family is very diverse. My grandfather was Kazakh, which also like sounds very similar to Kazakhstan, but it's actually a different type of people who used to be serving to Russia, to Russian emperor, so Russian Tsar. They used to be like a nation who used to protect the Tsar. My grandfather father was sent into the Kazakhstan into the certain part to like he was assigned to be like a governor of that part, and then that's how kind of like my family moved into that area. So this is a traditional Kazakh dress, and my family also comes from my grandmother was German and Polish. We have so many different type of roots in my family, which I'm very proud of. However, I never got to know those roots because when Soviet Union came, they were very insistent in kind of eradicating people's cultures and reinforcing Russian culture towards the people. That's being said that I don't speak any Polish, I don't speak any German, I only speak Russian. And I do speak a dialect of Turkish, which is Kazakh language. Not fully, not perfectly, but I do have some skills in this language, which I am grateful that I got to learn that while growing up. Life in Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan is truly a beautiful country, and I know I'm biased and I know I grew up there. When I was growing up, it was a poor country. The area that I was growing up was quite poor as well. However, people are still beautiful. People are welcoming. The nature in Kazakhstan is absolutely phenomenal. You will see nature like Grand Canyon. You will see nature like Lake Tahoe. You will see nature like in Switzerland as well. I would love to like maybe insert a clip of like Kazakhstani nature in here. Right now, Kazakhstan, for the last 15 years that I've been away from Kazakhstan, the Kazakhstan has developed tremendously. We really grew like economically, financially. I also believe that people became more proud of their own culture and own language, which is so beautiful to witness. And I'm getting like goosebumps talking about it because growing up, it wasn't something to be proud of. Like people were shy of their culture. People were kind of it wasn't very common to see any cultural events. And now there's just so much pride in the language and the culture. People are still welcoming. It's a beautiful nation and beautiful place to visit as well.
So when you say the language, you're talking about the actual Kazakh language.
Correct.
Is like the indigenous? Is that like the people that are indigenous to Kazakhstan?
Correct. Yes.
Wow. Okay. So the Soviet Union must have done like severe damage for the language to like almost die out, right?
Yes, this was a time in my area. So Kazakhstan is a huge country. It's a very big country with a very small population because there are some conditions that very hard to live in, right? There's steppe and cold and like, there's part of Siberia in Kazakhstan as well. So people are very spread out and people are living in kind of small towns around the country. So you cannot speak the country is so diverse. You cannot speak the part of the country that closer to Russia, like almost lost their language at one point. You would go to the stores and people only would speak Russian. You'll go to schools. Most of the schools were Russian schools. And then we would have one or two schools in the whole town that would.
But what did you speak in your home?
Russian. We spoke
Russian.
Russian. Yeah. And then you would go to the south of the country that is closer to Uzbekistan, and people would be much more proud of their culture, of their language, and they would hold on to their tradition more strongly. So it's truly dependent on the geographical area where you grew, where you were located.
Wow, so it's one country, but like different like ethnicities and dialects and languages, and it's one
Right.
country.
Yeah, like for example, I'll give you a great example of my like
Mhm.
this is how diverse the area that I grew up was. We had the synagogue, we had mosque, we have the church, yet the religion wasn't a big part of my life growing up as for a lot of people around me because again, Soviet Union made it a point to kind of eradicate religion, culture, and languages. Like so they were forcing a lot of the Russianized atheistic ideologies on the people.
Wow, so I mean, I have questions about religion later, but I kind of want to know more about this. Um,
It
so
could be
like,
the
okay,
whole hour.
you're in Kazakhstan, okay? But you're mixed, right? You said Polish and German and stuff. But what is like? Do you say you're from the Russian part of Kazakh?
Russianized part, yeah. No, Russianized part. So like I think like maybe it's not the word, but it
Uh-huh.
was heavily influenced by Russian
By the
culture
Russian.
parts.
Okay, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
because like sometimes like you and I will talk and then you'll be like, Russian Lena's coming out right now. Can you talk to me about Russian Lena? Because I've only heard of her and alhamdulillah so far I have never met her. But I hear about her often. Can you tell us who she is and when do people get to meet her?
I love this question. And I actually, so lately I've been trying to embrace my Russian Lena. So, what it means to me which I never identified as a Russian person, and I do not think that I don't have Russian blood, like too much Russian blood in me or no Russian blood in me. But I did grow up in this kind of Soviet Union Russianized culture. How you grew up is tremendously affects you. So I grew up in a tough environment. We used to say it, and I'm going to say it in my language, but then I'll translate it. We say it's at the Kazakhstan. What it means, it's Kazakhstan, baby. So what it means is like if something goes wrong while you growing up, it's like it was extremely cold, and if you go to school and there's no warmth, like the warmers are not working, you just say, well, it's Kazakhstan, baby. Like, you just have to get used to it. Like if you there's let's if transportation is not working for the day, or it's so cold that everything is just shut down, so you just say, well, it's Kazakhstan. Like you just have to get used to what you got in your life, and that gave me resiliency, that gave me this toughness that maybe not everybody carries in themselves. It gave me the different perspective of life. When you're growing up and let's say you don't have food to eat, and then you come into US and somebody is complaining of the quality of the watermelon that they got, it's the perspective that you having is very different from that person who is complaining about the watermelon. Right? Brings the perspective back into the privileged life.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people are acting out of control, and they really need that toughness to kind of like put them to senses. And that's when people will meet me.
Mm-hmm.
The other time, again, when people meet that Russian Lena, very rarely. I think like it's both. It's a person who is extremely compassionate because like I went through so much stuff, so I do have a lot of empathy for people, and yet I'm not afraid to call people on their bullshit when they are like acting out of control, right? There was a time when I tried to suppress that sense of that sense in me to be more assimilated in the culture that is here.
Mm-hmm.
Yet lately I started embracing that quality in me because it's an important quality. I don't know, I think it's very hard to explain it, but it's very conscious switch that happens inside myself where I need to go into the Russian Lena mode. It does very often show to my children for the better or worse. I think gentle parenting is probably not the parenting the way that I parent. In maybe a more modern point of that, I am a more traditional parent. I do give a lot of cuddles and love to my children, yet I do expect a lot of my children as well. Not in a sense of a tiger mom expectations, but I do expect them to respect me, to respect elders, to be conscious of needs of others around them. Sometimes I think like I expect more of them than we should expect of a child, and I start adjusting that more inside of my home lately.
You brought up gentle parenting.
Mhm.
Do you feel that you grew up a little bit too fast?
I don't remember myself being a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And looking back at my children right now, it's like it's a big culture gap there, because you cannot complain to me about the color of your sneakers when I didn't have warm shoes to wear when it was like -30 outside and my feet were so cold that I was crying from pain. So you cannot like, my parents were not able to buy me shoes several times during the winter. So if my shoes got broken, and it's cold outside, I kept on wearing the same shoes. My kids have 5 different sneakers, and then they still don't like the color, any of them, and they want a different one. So there is definitely, I'm learning how to adjust to that and kind of like meet them where they at, and not from the level of my trauma or like the level of my experiences growing up. Yet there is still a lot of what I learned in the last year, that there is a lot of value and experience that I had to bring to my children, maybe not through experiences, right? Like I'm not gonna not buy them the shoes and send them to Tahoe to freeze their feet off. But what I can do, I can do that storytelling to them, right? I can share my experiences with them, provide that awareness that there's a lot of people out there, even nowadays in Kazakhstan and even in US. We have a lot of people who don't have the same privileges that our children have right now. So this is a very, to me, it's a very important parenting, to keep on bringing perspective to our children and not shy away from exposing them to toughness of this life. I don't know what's going to happen in the future for them, and if they're going to be super soft, they will not be able to truly process all what the world has to bring to us. Life is beautiful, and yet life has so many challenges. It is beautiful and it's horrible at the same time. There is so much pain in this world, and if we're going to shy away from all that pain, we will never be able to experience life fully. So I don't want my kids to be sheltered. I don't want them to talk about their feelings all day long. I want them to be able to just be tough and go through life and being able to handle things with a sense that, like, hey, this is just life. This is probably how lately I have been taking life. Whenever something tough happens my way, I'm like, well, this is just part of it. And let me try to learn to dance in the rain. Let me try to learn to be okay with what's happening just as it is, and accept it as it is, and learn to be joyous even in those tough moments. And if we shelter our kids and we always gentle parent them, in a sense, again, my opinion, right, a very controversial opinion, I understand that, and Nora Jan does not agree with this particular point that I'm going to make. If we always going to shelter them, we're always going to talk to them about their feelings, it may not prepare them to the realities of the lives that out there. And I have experienced the very harsh, difficult, painful realities of this lives very early in my childhood, that I know that even though I have created that shelter for my children, even though I have created the space where they can grow up in a different manner than maybe I have grown up, they will still meet the harshness and pain of the life later on. I do not have control over that. Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has control over it. All I can do is make du'as for them and teach them that life can be unfair, that their feelings will not always be validated, that there's going to be toughness and pain that they will have to experience, and they just have to live through that. And that's okay, and that's just a part of life.
Actually, I agree with that. It comes down to the definition of what gentle parenting is. Because in my definition of gentle parenting is boundary setting, validating your feelings, but also like not budging. You're firm with your decisions.
I'm glad that we have like more common ground on that topic than maybe we thought we had. Yeah, I think like we are planning to do the whole episode on that, so we can come back to that.
Yes. Lena was a Kazakh baby. Young Lena had a tough life. You eventually came here. From coming from a place where you had to wear your broken shoes for the whole winter, you come here. Tell me about that. Tell me what that was like. Your first steps, like, on U.S. ground. Like, what was that like for you?
That was definitely like a dream. I remember just the smell of the air. I landed in New York City at first, and we spent one day in New York City before we were transferred to our, like, I came here to work in a camp, in a children camp. And it was actually Jesus camp. I was Christian back then, and I came to work in a Jesus camp. I remember just the smell of the city, and it was summertime, and I didn't sleep that night. I just we were brought into a hostel as a part of the program. We just had orientation there, so I was sharing a room with like another girl, and I just opened the window and it was raining and I sat on a window. It was just so beautiful. The smell of the rain, this just a very specific smell of the city, something that I have never experienced before. Then I walked outside and I don't even know which part of New York we were at. Like it might not be very safe, but I was just kept on walking. I
You're
just kept
tough.
on walking forward and looking at everything. I remember I saw for the first time in my life, I saw a coffee shop, strawberries that really like blew my mind. Is the packs of strawberries on the shelves that I've never seen before. Strawberry is something to hard to come around back home, and just seeing so many berries, something that I do remember. Then moving into the camp, people were like, I went to West Virginia from New York, and it's a very conservative state with a lot of a very little diversity. That really surprised me, to just not see diversity. Yet the people were just so kind and they were so nice, and they were so accommodating, and they were really devoted to their Bibles. So that was my like first introduction to US, that I had an assumption that people are extremely religious. They're very devoted to their faith. I noticed that their faith is very different than our faith, right? Even though I was Christian, the way they practice Christianity here was very different. Then working with kids was just a blast. I worked in a kitchen and I served, like I made meals. It was a very tough job. I worked from like 6:30 in the morning until almost like 10 o'clock at night. I don't know how legal that was from that camp, but that's
Well,
already past.
they got Rush. They got Kazakh kids, so you know they need
Right.
to.
I was just doing the work.
Yeah.
It was very tough. It was very tiring. I was 18 years old, but I was doing the work and didn't ask questions. I guess like now looking back, I was like, whoa, that was a tough job. Then we came to San Francisco with one of the friends who traveled with me. She was from Russia and she was stationed in that camp with me. We had about a couple months to travel. That's when we came to San Francisco. Oh my goodness, the first day at San Francisco and those huge buildings. I was just so blown away. In New York, we stayed, I guess, in like a more like away from the downtown
Like a
area.
suburb.
So I didn't see that like the skyscrapers. When the first time I saw it, I was just so blown away by the how majestic it was, how big everything was, and that US flag was on the top of like a very tall building in the middle of downtown of San Francisco. There was like a big US flag and the wind was moving it around. And it was just absolutely magical. I fell in love with San Francisco very fast. We were working at a restaurant called Sinbad, and it's not longer there, but it was a three brothers who opened that restaurant. It was a American seafood restaurant, and it was by the Bay Bridge. So out of the window, there was the water and the Bay Bridge. They end up not paying us money for the work that we were doing. And when I met Kamal, he had to go and talk with them to pay us. Yeah, I met Kamal and
Wait a minute.
yeah.
What?
Yeah, that's when we met. It was
Okay.
a really good time. We didn't have money to. There was time where I would be walking back home and I had $5 in my pocket, like because of the tips that people maybe gave us. But most of the tips were on the card. So like the like owners got to keep it and then pay you kind of in the end of the month, I guess. But they kept on prolonging the payment for us, and we were really struggling with money back then. And I remember I was walking home and I had $5 in my pocket. And it was about 30-minute walk, but I could have taken a bus for, I think it was like $1.25 back then. And then I could have taken a bus, but I didn't want to because I wanted to buy milk and cereal for that money so we could eat for a couple of days. So I walked home thinking about, man, how are we gonna pay the rent? Because the rent is due in a couple of days. I have $5 for food. So yeah, life was tough. Yet I was just so delusionally in love with US and what US had to represent and San Francisco. And I recently met Kamal, so I was just like absolutely in love with him. And I had, yes, I was completely delusional of what was actually happening. I wasn't scared. I wasn't feeling that something gonna go wrong. I had a lot of dreams and hopes for what my future have to bring for me.
I need to say I didn't know any of this. And you are a very good storyteller. Oh my gosh, okay. Oh, I have so many questions, but maybe we can do it offline. I've known you for 12 years and I didn't know this story from you. So this is amazing. I want to know more about it. And I think everyone's going to be asking, want
You know?
more. Well, but you're Christian. You were in Jesus camp. And subhanAllah, tell us.
Jesus can't have the bad rap, okay? It was fine. It was
I know.
great.
Listen, I can imagine how.
Yeah.
So you come from Kazakhstan. You go to Jesus camp.
Yeah.
You hop from New York to, is it Virginia?
West Virginia, yeah.
West Virginia. You do Jesus camp, and then I don't know how you ended up in San Francisco, but you came to stay.
Well, you see, like my family is very multi-faith. Like Kazakhstan is a Muslim country, so I knew a lot about Islam. My aunt married into a Muslim family, which was Chechen family. But I was very hyper aware of different type of religions growing up. Because of that, like a background knowledge of Islam, I always had a deep respect for the religion, maybe not necessarily understanding it fully. I think like I became, and that might be a controversial statement, but I became more Christian when I became Muslim, if that make any sense, right? Because the Christianity does believe in everything what we believe in, right? Like, but we kind of have them in Islam. We believe that we can purified, right, all of the like kind of misconceptions. So we believe that Jesus is a prophet of God and not a son of God, right? And then we have understanding, the same understanding of the pure Jesus birth. I think I knew Jesus much more when I became Muslim, and I became more understanding of his life story, of the miracles that he was able to like perform in this life, right? Like all of those things that basically like I learned Jesus and I fell in love with Jesus when I became Muslim. I think I didn't understand what I was believing in because there was kind of a notion of don't ask questions in the Christianity that I grew up in. So you kind of have to bluntly just believe in everything that's happening around you. And there's a lot of rituals and icons and candles and all of the things are happening, and you don't even, and the way they pronounce the prayers is in a different like dialect of Russian, like an old Russian language. So I never even understand what I was reading or what I was doing or believing. I was just doing it because I believed in God. And when Islam was shared with me through the eyes of Kamal, when he have shared with me the details, when I learned that I don't have to go to the church and pay money and to pray, like I learned that like I can just put a carpet, a praying rug and sit down and just have a direct connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with God, versus actually going through the icons, like praying to Jesus or praying to, like there's different type of holy people that you pray to kind of get your message to God. But I discovered the direct connection. And I do remember that first time where I took the praying rug and I put it in a place, like it was in San Francisco. Kamal was at work. I was by myself. It was kind of getting dark. It was Maghrib time. And I just decided to pray. And I put the praying rug and I had a book. I didn't memorize the prayer yet. So I just was reading through the book, but I performed my first prayer. And I was just bawling, crying. And at that moment I didn't officially accept Islam yet, but I knew that I was Muslim at that moment, and it was just such a purifying, beautiful experience. Then when I was 20 years old, I went and I took my shahada, And then when I was 21, I put my hijab on after I wore it during the Ramadan, and then I just decided to keep it on my hijab.
You were a brand new baby in like the sense of being like just a brand new Muslim. We took a break and now we're back.
Yeah.
And then so Lena Jen, we stopped pretty much at like your conversion story. So you converted like around 20. So by that time you're Muslim. Do you remember where you said your shahada?
Yes, it was on that masjid on the Jones and Market Street, the corner masjid. It was a Friday prayer. We went, prayed. I've been praying my Friday prayers for a while. And then after the Friday prayer, I went to the imam and I said, I want to say my shahada. And yeah, I did it.
That's a really beautiful masjid, actually. I love that place because it's on Jones Street and it's beautiful. And I think
Windows.
the windows are my favorite. Every time I go there, I take a picture of the windows every single time. And I think the person who designed it was Moroccan, so biased. Okay, so shahada, mashallah, you're Muslim. I'm sure that was like a whole other, it sounds to me that you were Muslim like from day to night, but I know it wasn't the case. I know it was like a long transition, and I'm sure you had to like deal with a lot of stuff, like family stuff.
Interestingly enough, like I feel like my transition to Islam was quite simple. And my mom, like I remember after, like I told you that story when I prayed, I actually called my mom right after, and I felt so much guilt over it for some reason, because like I needed to tell my mom that like I'm a different religion now, and I needed to relieve that guilt. And I think like I was craving her approval at that point. And I remember my mom said, well, the God is one anyway, and it doesn't matter which road we take to come to him. And I remember was feeling like so relieved. Yet when I put hijab on, that's when my family was like concerned, and that they felt that, oh, you becoming like too religious or like radicalized or something like that, because it's not very common in Kazakhstan. Back then, it wasn't common for women to wear hijabs. And it was always like stigmatized to wear hijabs. Now it's changing a lot. A lot of girls, young girls especially, choosing to wear hijab. Back then it wasn't the same. So I make a decision to wear hijab when it wasn't easy to make that decision, right? It wasn't a popular thing to do. It wasn't a respected thing to do. So I did have to lose a lot of connections, friends, over that choice in US.
Christian friend.
Yeah, and then back home as well. A lot of people kind of like stopped once they saw like pictures maybe on social media of me wearing hijab. They were like, cautious of kind of continuing communication with me. Then I went home wearing hijab, like I think a year after I put it on. And of course, like now everybody knows that I'm wearing hijab, and that was a different deal. But it showed me also who truly loved me, who I am, and trusted me to make my own decisions. And those people who maybe were transitional people in my life, which now I'm okay with, back then it might have been painful. But the most beautiful story that happened when I did put hijab on was here in US. I was working as a hostess in a Plouf restaurant, and Eric was I believe, I'm not sure actually till this day, but the servers would tell me that he was Jewish. We never had discussion about our like his religion with him. He was the owner of the restaurant, and when I put the hijab on, he made sure that he had a space for me in the restaurant to go pray my prayers. He actually was very surprised that I was Muslim. He was like, "Oh, I didn't know you're Muslim." And then he just made sure that I had the time, because it was an evening shift. It was a Maghrib time, Isha time, breaking of the fast time. So I would work while fasting. They would make sure that I have a break during the breaking of the fast. They would make sure that I have the place to pray. It was like I had to like climb a little ladder, go through the kitchen, climb a little ladder, go on the top, and then there was a storage space there. and I would be taking my time to pray and break my fast there. I remember the bartender who would serve alcohol all evening long. At the time of fast, he would get a glass, pour milk in it. He is a bartender, so he would make an alcoholic drinks, and he would make it. He was kind of a barista as well, I guess. So he had milk, and he would make sure to, at the time of like breaking fast, he would pour a glass of milk and just leave it at the bar for me. So I would just walk by, grab it, go on the back of the kitchen, go on the tap, and break my fast. So it just, I do believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala truly made the transition to this faith quite beautiful and simple.
I also had co-workers that were also Jewish that would make sure that I prayed on time. It's just so beautiful to have that, to have people that have your back, that don't necessarily understand like your religion or what your faith is, but they know that what you need to do is important enough that they're going to make that space for you.
And it's a beautiful manifestation of what actually happening in life versus what's happening on the media, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like when you have this beautiful brotherhood of like Jewish, Muslim, Christian people working together to respect our own values, very often that animosity or like this extreme versions of situations are so highlighted in media, right? Versus when in a daily day-to-day life we witness a completely different things. It's just we all like in this kind of certain brotherhood that we do understand how important the religion is to us for those who are like actively practicing, that we have enough decency, enough respect, enough understanding to create those safe spaces for us to practice.
Yeah. I mean, now that we're talking about work and stuff like that and faith, we are probably going to be jumping ahead a couple more years. So, you became a nurse and now you're not actively a nurse, but you're still in the medical field. But I remember you like when you're in the trenches, like you were like, you would go to the hospitals, you'd be, you would go and clock in and out and all that stuff, and you would like sleep during the day and work at night. Like that was pretty crazy.
Yeah.
How do you feel? So, like the accommodations that you got, like at the restaurant job, has that always happened throughout your careers, like in other jobs that you were in?
That's a great question because definitely, yes, moving into nursing, like I went to school first in City College and then to state here at San Francisco. Um, and I think I was struggling even through school, like being trained as a nurse, I was struggling to find accommodations to pray on time because the schedule is looks very different. So after I completed college, I made it work, but I do remember I went through to school the whole day. Then we had clinical where we had to go to the early in the morning. We had to go to clinical, so I would wake up at 5 a.m., go to clinical, go to classes after, and then I had to go to masjid for the Tarawih prayer.
Mm.
And I was doing all of those things. Mashallah, like I didn't have a child back then, so like I do recognize that it's not possible at this moment right now, but was possible back then. I fell asleep during Tarawih prayer. I was staying, and I literally fell asleep, and I started falling forward. And Sheikh's wife literally put the hand over me so I don't fall forward. I fell asleep during Tarawih. It was an interesting time in life. It wasn't easy to keep on the faith, like to keep on fasting, to keep on praying while being so busy. Nursing school is truly like a boot camp. It just go, go, go. It's nonstop. You fall out from life. Then going into the working actually with people who were so sick, I got blessed with a job, a new grad job in one of the best, biggest hospitals, right, in the area. And I started about 6 months at the daytime. And then I was doing craziest thing to accommodate my motherhood life. I was doing 2 nights and 1 day shift in a week. Nurses work 3 hours, 12 hours. And we were fasting that year when I was doing one day shift. And I remember I went into the outside, I laid down on the bench during my break. It's a 30-minute break. I was fasting and I just fell asleep. And there is a patient who opened a cafe, like it's a little truck that serves coffee. She used to be an oncology patient, and then they opened a cafe, and she's Jewish, by the way, and she came and she gently woke me up, and she's like, "Oh, you fasting, like you look very tired." And alhamdulillah, I was on time to come back. You are on your patient schedule, you're taking the breaks around your patient schedules. So I did astaghfirullah, but yes, there's were times where I would miss my prayers.
Mhm.
Later, when I kind of learned the ways around and when I was more confident to ask and explain the importance to my coworkers were absolutely amazing. I would go into the hospital to start my shift, and I would have to break my fast when I was working nights. They would always make sure that I have that time sacred to go in a break room and break my fast. One year they made a Ramadan, like Eid celebration for me. They brought like a potluck food and celebrated Eid. Being at the bedside as a nurse was definitely one of the best times of my working life. It wasn't easy being a mom. It wasn't easy being a Muslim and pray and do all of the devotion things.
Mhm.
But I will never forget the difference it made for me, first of all, in my life and my understanding of life, working with very sick oncology patients.
I think it takes a while for us to like be able to feel comfortable enough to express our needs. I think
Yeah.
this is for me. I'm sure, I won't speak for you, but for me, like like I would have been too shy to be like, like for example, my first job, I was too shy to say, "Hey, I need to pray," and I would wait to get home. And I would pray all the prayers that were missed until I got home, and I mean, I prayed, alhamdulillah. It was the right thing to do, no. But I think if we don't speak up and we don't ask for support to fulfill all, religious requirements, I mean, they need to be accommodated. It has to be accommodated. And if we don't speak up and ask for that, then it's not going to happen. And then we're just going to, do what I ended up doing and just like pray everything at home. Or, some might be like, maybe not even pray at all. Some people will be like, it's just too much work and maybe not even pray. But I think it is important to have like, open communication with our coworkers, our managers, and make sure that we get that support. Because I think if you don't have that time, that 30 minutes for you to pray and to break your fast, you probably wouldn't be a good nurse. You'd probably be messing up and stressed out and oh my gosh, like you're delirious because you haven't slept, you haven't ate, you haven't had water. So it's important to have that time.
I think what you are saying is very, very important to have that communication ahead of time. Like, I wish
Mhm.
somebody told me that, because I almost was in the beginning, I was relying on people's mercy to kind of accommodate for me or read my mind or read my
Mhm.
needs. And the reality is, we are living in a predominantly other religion country, right? People who are atheists, Christians. It's not necessarily that Muslim needs are in the top of their mind. I
Mhm.
still this day I meet people every day at my work who have no idea that Muslims pray 5 times. They have no idea that we are fasting. They have no idea that we need to break our fast, right? So having that communication ahead of time. So what I definitely did on my new job, like I just started this job in patient safety. So what and I'm still a nurse, by the way. I'm
Yeah.
still doing, you have to be a nurse to do this job, but it's a definitely completely different field of nursing, right? It's
Mhm.
not caring for the patient, it's something very different. But the first communication I had with my manager, I was like, I am Muslim, like very clear. I know I'm very
Surprise!
Islam. Yeah, just like very, very, very clear. I am Muslim. I am fasting time to time, during Ramadan and outside of Ramadan, that I do need to go pray during certain times. So like I will maybe walk out of the meeting for 5 minutes and go pray my prayer and then come back. And she was, once she asked all the questions that she needed to ask, she was very comfortable with kind of accommodating me in that, and even asking me, do you need any space? Like, what can we do for you? I really don't care. Like, I don't mind just going in any corner and do my
Mhm.
prayer, as long as like people are aware of what I'm doing around me. Yeah, so definitely what you said about clear, concise, and on time communication is the key. Proactive communication. Don't wait until the moment you need to pray to ask for a prayer
Mhm.
time, right?
Mhm.
Like having those kind of like expectations and boundaries set up with your work is something that I didn't understand in my first jobs, right?
Mhm.
And later on, I was lucky enough to have a lot of accommodative people in the beginning, so I didn't feel I needed to have a sit down conversation. But moving forward, I will always have a sit down conversation with my coworkers and with my leaders to
Mhm.
make sure that they are completely aware of what my values are and expectations are of my faith. And that will always come before my job.
Mhm. And I think uh, when coworkers do see, like, they see that you have like really you have a really strong values about what you need to do, there's a lot of respect.
Mm-hmm.
I remember last Ramadan, I was fasting. I'm not gonna just be like, sit here, like, oh, Ramadan's magical. Ramadan's hard for me, at least. Like, it's hard. It's hard, like, doing Ramadan and fasting while working. It was hard for me. It's been hard for me since I became a mom. But
Mm-hmm.
I remember last year, it was lunchtime, and of course, I wasn't going to eat lunch because I'm fasting, but I passed down like the kitchen area and I was chatting with some of my coworkers, and I had my prayer mat with me, and I was, on my way down to the little prayer room that I like to pray in. It's not a prayer room, but I'm calling it my prayer room now. And we were just talking to my coworkers, and then one of them was like, and they didn't realize I was fasting because she offered me whatever she had. I said, "Oh no, it's okay, thank you, I'm fasting." Wow, like she was just like, so, you know what? That's just amazing. And like they were just kind of like really impressed. And I'm not trying to impress anyone. I'm just trying to be myself and like be a good Muslim and just fulfill my fasting. But they were just like so in awe of like someone like fasting and like not even able to drink or eat while there's, and I'm sitting with them. But I think this is a long, tangent story, but I think when any person, whoever has like very strong values, any person, any faith, any background, I think it just shows people who you are and what your priority.
And I think like going back into being shy about it, like I do understand that. Like I felt exactly the same way of like being shy to ask, being shy to explain. But you are right. Like actually, it's completely opposite. When you do stay strong into your values, when you do stay strong into your faith obligations, this is when people do respect you more. They actually see you for who you are, for your personality, and they do have that sense of respect. Just as I have sense of respect for people who stick with their values. Have a coworker who weight trains, and she doesn't eat like any carbs, and she only makes her own food, and like it doesn't have salt, and so like she's on a very strict diet to kind of dry her muscles, so she kind of do like a show the muscles, that
Mhm.
muscle show that people do.
Mhm.
I like, it's fascinating to me to be so strong in your values, right? Like don't give in into all of those snacks and cupcakes that we get in the office. So I do have a tremendous sense of respect to her because I know that she has this sense of self-control.
Yeah.
And I do believe that in a way that our faith is also representation of that self-control, that
Yeah.
I can control my cravings for food during Ramadan. I can control my cravings for approval of others and still like stand up and go and pray my prayers, even though people may look down on me or
Mhm.
misjudge me or whatever that might be.
It's funny that you said misjudge because I had a question about misjudgment. What do you think people misjudge you the most?
I have the answer. Like, I know why you're asking that question. I think, like, I did share with you that I do feel misunderstood a lot. And I don't have energy, or maybe like I don't care enough to prove the world wrong. I feel like it does follows me for life. Walking into a room with a hijab, I do know that people misjudge me for my intellect and ability to speak English, that's for sure. People try to speak more clearly when they talk to me in banks, in grocery stores. You can see that they're assuming that you do not have education, ability to speak the language, ability to comprehend maybe a different level of language, right? Because of course there is like, a different way to speak, ability to comprehend what they are saying in general, like, the intellectual ability. So and also your rank within, whenever I'm walking into the rooms full of people who may have like very high positions, like sometimes there is an assumption that I got into the wrong room, or I'm looking for wayfinding. They would ask me, okay, like, do you need to get somewhere? So, and then like I will have to prove or like explain myself that I do
You're like, I run the program. You're like, I'm the program director of this program.
And then like I do have to kind of like, whenever I'm presenting, I intentionally spend extra time to explain my credentials and expertise before I speak, so people have this sense of trust towards me, right? That is fun. Another thing, I do feel that people often take my kindness for weakness, and that maybe I'm not intelligent enough to kind of like understand the full situation, right? Because I do lead with kindness and kind of like almost submissiveness, but that's a protective mechanism, right? When you are coming from different background, you want to be extra nice, you want to be extra accommodative. And very often our world thinks that choosing to be kind means that you're weak to take the battle. But I truly believe that kindness is actually strength. It's a wisdom to choose differently. It's a wisdom where you want to just jump into it with somebody, right? Or it's a wisdom when you are seeing a horrible behavior. I had patients who hit me. I had patients who like throw me to the wall one time. And when you are leading back or responding with kindness, I can see how it can be interpreted as weakness. But in reality, it takes so much strength to control that Russian Lena that lives within.
That's what I was gonna say. You're trying really hard to not have Russian Lena like join the room, join the chat.
So the truth is, I feel it takes a much stronger person to choose kindness when your natural ability or natural kind of thing is actually the opposite, right?
Yeah.
When you're constantly making that choice, what is the kindest thing I can do in this situation? Believe it or not, it's actually better for me to choose that route, because when I do choose the harsh route, I do have a sense of wave of like guilt after that.
So thank you everyone for joining us. I learned, along with everyone else, more about Lena today. I learned about her background, how she grew up, learned about what Kazakh babies are. And I think next time I need to actually like interview Russian Lena. Like I need Russian Lena I need to interview her. Like a whole,
Episode.
Also, please remember to follow us, to share anything that we post. Eventually, I think by this time, we're going to be posting on YouTube as well as Spotify, and follow us on Instagram. What's our Instagram, Lena? Bismillah Diaries? What is it? I forgot.
I think it's Bismillah, I'm late again.
Is it Bismillah late again? I don't even know. Oh. But anyway, follow us.
We'll link it below.
We'll link it and we'll do everything else. And Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. Thank you, Narajan, for having me. Bye.